Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Political Avenger. Well, I was going to say tech. I'm used to saying that. This is PA. This is PA, and tonight we're going to be talking about Nazi UFOs and the difference between man-made UFOs and extraterrestrial. Now, what you see in front of your screen is a CIA document from 1952 to 1953, where the CIA was monitoring discussions, radio shows, newspapers talking about advanced technology. Now, in this particular document, it talks about the country of origin: Germany, USSR, French, Africa, Syria, Iran. And the subject line is military unconventional aircraft. Now, why is this important? Because, again, if the Nazis were working on flying saucers or spaceships or time traveling aircraft or spacecraft or interdimensional craft, then that means they conquered the ability to go into space and to jump time. They did this in the 1940s. Now, anyone that follows the history of the Third Reich, we understand that the Third Reich was doing a lot of weird experimentation, and they were Satanist. For those of you that don't understand that the Nazis were Satanist, they were occultists, they were Satanists, they were Luciferian. They used the spiritual realm to gain power. Other people will make claims that they were Christian. That is a complete lie. The SS had its own secret society, and they were always consulting warlocks, witches, psychics, in order to get an advantage to other military around the world. So let's go into this document. The document talks about an engineer, a German engineer, that claimed that the saucers plans, or the flying saucer plans, were in Soviet or USSR hands. There were sightings in Africa. There were sightings in Iran. There were sightings in Syria. And this German engineer states that the Soviets have German flying saucers, experts, and plans. So the Soviets, hold on, guys. So the Soviets got some engineers, they got some scientists, just like we did during Project Paperclip. They got some of the plans. And if you really sit with this, if you really sit with the fact that countries around the world after World War II got their hands on scientists that were working on alternative craft, probably 90% of the quote unquote UFOs that we see in the sky are man-made. And about 90% of the phenomenon, like plasma, orbs, certain types of light in the sky, are most likely man-made, military operated. So what it states here, this is on May 13th of 1953, Vienna Special Service. According to recent reports from Toronto, a number of Canadian Air Force engineers are engaged in the construction of a flying saucer. Okay, this is Canada, 1953. So the Canadian Air Force engineers are engaged in the construction of a flying saucer to be used as a future weapon of war. The work of these engineers is being carried out in great secrecy at the A.B. Rowe Company. Uh, transliteration from the Greek factories. Quote unquote, flying saucers have been known to be an actuality since the possibility of their construction was proven in plans drawn by the German engineers towards the end of World War II. George Klein, a German engineer, stated recently that though many people believe that flying saucers uh, to be a post-war development, they were actually in the planning stage in Germany as a German aircraft in their factories as early as 1941. Klein said that he was an engineer in the military of Speer, which is probably referring to Albert Speer, who in 1942 was the Minister of Armament and Ammunition for the Third Reich, and was present in Prague on February 14, 1945, at the first experimental flight of the flying saucer. During the experiment, Klein reported that the quote-unquote flying saucer reached an altitude of 12,400 meters within 3 minutes and a speed of 2,200 kilometers per hour. Klein emphasized that in accordance with the German plans, the speed of these saucers would reach 4,000 kilometers per hour. Again, 1941 to 1945. And then it continues, one difficulty. Let me see if it has a second part here. One difficulty, according to Klein, was the problem of obtaining the materials to be used for the construction of the quote-unquote saucers. But even this had been solved by the German engineers towards the end of 1945, and construction on the objects was scheduled to begin, Klein added. Klein went on to state that the 3 experimental models had been readied for test by the end of 1944, built according to 2 completely different principles of aerodynamics. One type actually had the shape of a disc, which is the one that everyone was seeing throughout the 1950s. And the second one, okay, the shape of a disc with an interior cabin and was built as a mite in the factories, which had also built the V-2 rockets. This model was 42 meters in diameter. The other model had the shape of a ring with raised sides and a spherical shaped pilot's cabin placed on the outside in the center of the ring. This model was built at the Habermohl or Shriver factories. Both names were being translated from Greek. Both models had the ability to take off vertically and to land in an extremely restricted area like helicopters. During the last few days of the war, when every hope for the German victory had been abandoned, the engineers in the group stationed in Prague carried out orders to destroy completely all their plans on their model before the Soviets' forces arrived. The engineers at the mite factories in Breslau, however, were never or not warned in sufficient time of the Soviet approach, and the Soviets therefore succeeded in seizing their material. The plans, as well as the specialized personnel, were immediately sent directly to the Soviet Union under heavy guard coincidental with the departure from Berlin of the creator of the Stuka, which is the Ju-87 dive bomber, who later developed the MiG-13 and the MiG-15 in the Soviet Union. According to the report, nothing is known of the whereabouts of the Hamburg since his disappearance from Prague. Shriver died recently in Bremen, and Mite, who escaped in the Messerschmitt 163, is in the US. So again, the Soviets got engineers and flying saucer experts with their plans. The United States got some of the scientists, obviously Werner von Braun and the other, I think it was like over 1,000 scientists and engineers. We brought them over through Project Paperclip. We put them in all parts of our society, in universities, in the CIA, when the CIA was created, right? We put them in the military, and we had them working on our space program. So according to the report, Klein was of the opinion that the saucers are at present being constructed in accordance with the German technical principles, and expressed the belief that they will constitute serious competition to jet-propelled airplanes. Klein further stated that it was very possible to construct a flying saucer for civilian air travel, that they could carry 30 to 40 passengers at the speed of 4,000 kilometers per hour. He added, however, that the tremendous amount of material necessary for their construction did not warrant their being built exclusively for civilian air travel. His opinion was shared, he stated, by Giuseppe Belluzzo, the Italian specialist with whom Klein has been corresponding for some time. Then they get into a delayed report on four saucers seen in Ubangi, was seen in France in March of 11th of 1953, and they talk about the meteorological service of France in Africa had authorized a newspaper to publish the following account about the flying saucers. So they were flying these around all over the world. Now, what I want to know, and I haven't been able to find documents on Google, I haven't been able to find documents on Google or in any of the archives. How did the Germans, first of all, how did the Germans get the idea to do these flying saucers? That's number one. Did they get information during one of their occult rituals? Were they opening portals and things were coming through? Were they were they communicating with other beings from other places? How did they get this information? Did they accidentally stumble on traveling through time when they were developing these things? Because that's supposedly the rumor, right? Nobody has evidence that this was what happened. But the rumor is that the Nazis were creating these flying saucers, and during the process of working out the alternative propulsion system, they stumbled on the ability of the saucer to resonate at a specific frequency where it literally warps the saucer's, I guess, outer structure, meaning it opens a portal or a wormhole. Did they stumble on opening portals and wormholes when they were creating these things and testing the propulsion system or the alternative engines? That's what I want to know. I haven't been able to find that. So these are the accounts from, again, Africa and other places in Africa where they saw flying saucers November 22nd, 1952. At approximately 2200 hours, Father Carlos Maria, his companion, and four other persons were driving on a road to Bocaranga when they suddenly noticed a large disk traveling overhead in the same direction as they. Lismon extinguished the car's lights, but the disc disappeared in the distance. A short while later, in the same spot, they saw a fourth disc motionless in the air. Father Maria's description follows. We could see them clearly. Two were above and two below, but all four had no point of contact. At that moment, they had a silver color like that of the moon. I would say that their diameter was somewhere between 30 to 40. I can't read the rest because it's blocked off. They had raised sides and spherical shapes. And they repeat it again here. Hold on. Okay, I would say that their diameter was somewhere between 30 and 40 centimeters. They moved several times, but each time it seemed that only one to two lower ones were rotating. Just before they all four began to move, they lit up brightly like suns. Okay, those are the and if you look at some of the extraterrestrial flying saucers, UFO reports of modern day, they talk about a light or an orb. So this was seen in the 1950s, and it is believed that it was German spacecraft that were seen in the sky. So each time they turned, they had that shape and that profusion of light. We observed them for about 20 minutes. After their final turn, they remained motionless in their initial position for several moments. Then they disappeared and headed in the direction from which we had come. What I saw was a neorolite shooting star. It wasn't no aerial light or shooting star or anything of that kind. It could only have been a man-made machine. So he was describing it as it was a man-made machine per what he saw. Lesimon then gave an equally detailed version as follows. At about 2200 hours, we observed four halos of silver light grouped in a square formation and located above the light clouds. The night was very clear. At one point, the four halos were on the horizon, ranged in a line in the direction of the bosom. Suddenly, one of them lit up in a vivid red, causing its shape to be distinguished. It was like a cigar, thicker in the fore section. The center section constituted about the third of the total length and appeared opaque in the light, with perfectly symmetrical lines. Flying above the clouds, this object headed in our direction at a considerable speed, about equal to that of an average plane. About 5 or 6 kilometers away, it halted without changing its lights and then climbed again vertically. The stop was abrupt and the glow became silvery again. The other three on the horizon then began to move in the same way as the first and joined it to form a square once again. And then they talk about these flying saucers being seen in Syria, and then luminous objects seen in the sky of Abadan, Tehran. And this is May 20th, 1953. And it talks about this newspaper was informed by its correspondents at 1855 hours on May 18th, 1953, that a luminous object was seen in the sky over Abadan. The object was reported to be as bright as the sun and to have the shape of the new moon, but several times larger than a new moon. It traveled extremely fast and could be seen for 20 minutes. It was also reported that the same object was seen over all the oil areas in Khuzestan. And then it continues more, there's more detailed accounts of these flying saucers. And you have a second interrogation report. This is unclassified. Everything that I'm looking at is unclassified. Interrogation report of the flying saucers. And this interrogation is from an ex RCAF officer of a German immigrant. And they were talking about, this is in Ontario, I believe. They were talking about having knowledge of German flying saucers design and production. In the interview, or the interview was arranged, and the report that follows has been divided into 3 parts covering 3 periods of interrogation. This is in Ottawa, in Canada. The interrogation took place in 1952, June 21st. And the source redacted ex-member of German, I guess one of the German services. The subject, alleged designer of flying saucers, Welt Schiff. They give the date when he was born, where he was born, his education, and he was a pilot. He went to flying school. Pre-military employment. They talked about his military service. He was in the military, I think, from the age of 16. And then they talk about the post-war employment. Okay, and then there's another interrogation, June 23rd, 1952, where they talk about Mr. Redacted contacted DAI and stated that Mr. Redacted did not divulge all that he knew of the flying saucer, and that he had a number of drawings that pertained to the construction of the German flying saucers. The plans shown the explanation of the operation of the design indicated that a more authoritative opinion of its value was necessary. Arrangements were made for the source to be interrogated by the NRC officers. During the period, Redacted produced a photograph of a mountain in which the underground factory was concealed. A source offered to guide the RCAF representatives to the factory so that a copy or parts of the flying saucer may be obtained for research purposes. As previously stated, the source was unwilling to divulge the exact location of the factory. Redacted was questioned as to why he did not offer the information to the Americans. The source felt that he was not fairly treated by the Americans during the occupation and preferred to hold the information for Canada. So again, this is a second person talking about a factory where they were doing secret weaponry, including flying saucers. They had the plans, they were testing them. And if you recall Operation High Jump, if you believe what many people were speculating, that we had an encounter with flying saucers in Antarctica when we went looking for Nazis that fled Germany, we lost that quote unquote battle in Antarctica because of these advanced craft. Now I'm going to get it, there's more to this interrogation, but you get the gist. I'm going to get into the famous German engineer flying saucers planning stage, where as early as 1941, this is a picture of the infamous large craft that they create, one of the large craft that they created. And this thing is huge. Let me see if you can see it. Here we go. So this is supposedly a picture of the German flying saucer. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Let me show you the picture. So this is the picture of the flying saucer. My question to everyone is, why are we still using early 1900s technology and fuel? If the Germans accomplished alternative propulsion systems and the United States, we accomplished it in the 50s, why are we still using old fuel? Why are we still using the airplanes that we use today? You know, the ruling class claim that we are the cause of supposed climate change. The populations of the world are the cause for the destruction of the earth. But in reality, they are the cause of all the destruction because they're unwilling to change the system. They're unwilling to transition the populace to real alternative fuel, or let's just call it 0 point energy, even though there's variations of that. They're unwilling to transition us to almost 100-year-old technology, because it's going to be 100 years in 10 years, basically 20 years. This is why many of us have an issue with the whole climate crisis, because we've been able to stop using fossil fuels on the level that we've been using it. And yet we're still in the same position that we were in the 30s, with the same aircraft, the same vehicles, motor vehicles. Nothing has really changed. Just think about that. Nothing has changed. And then you have to think, why are we spending money on rockets to go into space? What is that all about? We have spaceships that have been able to go into space since the 1950s. What are we doing? Still, doing these, creative rockets. What is the point? Somebody doesn't like that I'm talking about this. What is the point of creating the same old rockets that we've had for 70 years with the same propulsion systems? Why haven't we really gone back to the moon? The story goes there's bases on the moon. Who built those bases? Are they ancient bases? Are there more modern bases? I'm going to tell you a story, and I've said this story in my other channels several years ago. I had a dream many, many years ago where I was outdoors. I actually had several of these dreams, but there was one particular dream where I was outdoors, and I believe it was on a weekend, and everybody was hanging out on a weekend, and I was hanging out with a friend, and then there was an emergency alert. I think it was a Friday night, and the skies opened up, a portal opened up in the sky. And I saw this type of flying saucer that you see in front of your screen. This kind of like this, a silver flying saucer come through the portal, and there was several of them. And when they came through the portal, people started freaking out. Like they started spazzing out, right? Because the public is not used to all of a sudden, seeing these craft just appear clearly in the night sky over the cities. I looked up, and as soon as I saw the flying saucers in my dream, these spacecraft coming through the portal, I knew that they were man-made in my dream. And I was with friends, and I looked around, and I'm looking at everyone, like, certain types of people were freaking out. And I had a feeling, right? I had a feeling. It was a very uncomfortable feeling, not because these were extraterrestrial spaceships, right? I had a bad feeling because I knew they were man-made. I had a fear because I knew they were man-made. And when I saw them, they came down. It was about 4 or 5 of them, I believe, that came through and were hovering over the city where I was in. And all of a sudden, I see I'm standing there with a friend, and I see this man come down from the craft. Like, I didn't see him come down like with an energy beam or anything. I just knew that someone came down, and he was standing right behind me and behind my friend. This man was about six something, about six, I would say like 6'3", 6'4". He was white. He had blonde hair. I want to say he had blue eyes, and I knew he was German. I knew he was a German man. And basically, he came down and he put his arms around me and my friend, as if to say, he was trying to talk to me telepathically. And he was telling me, do I want to come up to the spacecraft? And I told him no. I said, I don't want to go up to the spacecraft. I had a weird feeling. It's not that the man was like dark or anything, but I just didn't feel right. I thought there was a hidden agenda behind that whole situation in the dream. And then the man left. And when I went to, there was a building like a few steps away from where I was at that had military personnel. I went to the building, and I tried to tell the personnel in that building that these were man-made craft. They were German. I believe that the men were German, and nobody cared. None of the military personnel cared about what was being said. And then, of course, when I woke up, I remembered that we did take in Germans, scientists, that were most likely working on these crafts. Everything you're being told is a lie. Pretty much. 90% lie. We have the capability to travel to the moon. We have the capability to travel to Mars already. I'm going to go ahead and speculate, even though I believe this in my being, that we have the ability to open up wormholes and portals to travel to either to jump time or travel to other dimensions. The ruling class doesn't care about the environment, nor do they care about animals, nor do they care about you or me. They don't want to lose their hold to power. That's why they're not sharing the technology. That's that's why they're not telling the public. That's why they always keep us, guessing. The extraterrestrials are trying. Some of them are trying to get us to pressure these ruling elite to change our system. to change the way we live. Now, many people are going to be speculative, or are they going to speculate that the extraterrestrials are doing it for the wrong reasons, that they're trying to take over the earth. You hear all these stories from different people. But the ones that want us to change, to advance, to, stop being a war driven humanity that loves greed, that loves domination, they want us to change so we can travel the stars without warring. Look at all the advancements that we've made. What do we use our technology for? Destruction, consumerism. That's all we use it for. And then here and there, supposedly they're using it to, better humanity, better medicine, which is not true. Just think about the mRNA, CRISPR, gene editing. Has that done any good to us? Have we seen people get healthier? Are people healthier? Or are we seeing, you know, Dr. Frankenstein situation with our food supply, with our water supply, with our DNA? Because people have, they have the Nazi mentality of messing with people's DNA. Keep on hating. Whoever you are, keep on hating. I'm going to tell the people and talk about all this. I don't care. I'm going to talk about it. What is gene editing doing for us? What are the poison darts doing for us? What are hormones, synthetic hormones doing for most of the population? Why is most of the population in that in between, I don't know who I am, besides the spiritual realm? All this tech, and yet we're going backwards. All this technology, and yet we're still going backwards. We haven't advanced any. The only thing that has advanced is consumerism. We can buy more of it, more toys to buy, more games to play, more distractions. But we could have already been in the stars. We could have already been in other planets. We could have already, had the Star Wars, excuse me, not the Star Wars, the Star Trek program, where we're being introduced to other beings, other races from other places. But none of that has happened as far as the public is concerned. We haven't benefited from any of that. It's a sad situation that we're in. The greed is going to destroy the planet. The unwillingness to change is going to destroy the planet. I mean, think about it. How many phones do you actually need? How many cars do you actually need? How many cars can you drive at one time? And the crazy thing is that we have material from the space beings, the space brothers. We have material that is lightweight, and that can currently be used in all our products, and yet we're not using it. They have a physics that we can use, and we're not using it. They know how to extract minerals and mine the planet without hurting the planet, nature itself. But because of money, they're not using these things. I mean, for God's sake, they're talking about mining asteroids. Mining asteroids. Crazy stuff. So again, we have flying saucers. The Canadians have flying saucers. The Russians have flying saucers. Probably the Chinese have flying saucers. Probably the British have flying saucers. They're not sharing it with the public. The extraterrestrials are pissed. They're pissed. Some of them are. Uh, the governments of the world have arrangements with these beings. We have moon bases. Somebody has a moon base. They talk about, oh, we haven't gone back to the moon since 1969 because what? Because somebody was already there. You don't go back to a place where someone's already there. And the Germans escaped to Antarctica. Oof. Ooh. Ooh. Tomorrow I'll be talking about something even crazier than what I'm talking about today. And that is the alien interview. I'm just going to show you a little bit of it. It's transcripts of an interview that was done by a military nurse to one of the Roswell crash victims. Hold on. Let me just show you the. Let's see here. Where is it? Let me see if this is it. No, that's not it. Well, that's it right there. But let me see if I can show you the other file. Here it is. So tomorrow I'll be sharing this. Actually, it's a really, really long interview. Supposedly, this is an interview that took place with one of the survivors of Roswell. And the person doing the interview was a military nurse, Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. She wrote down some notes of this whole interview she had with this extraterrestrial. They get into the details of why the extraterrestrials came here. They all say it was because of us blowing up atomic bombs that I guess it rippled through the universe and other dimensions, which caused other space beings to start paying attention to what was going on to Earth. So they came here to find out what we were doing. And in this interview, they ask questions. The being gives the military nurse, answers, and they go through this whole exchange. The being speaks to the nurse telepathically, and then starts providing images at some point. And this nurse didn't speak for, I think it was like 50, 60 years, 70 years. So she was like in her 80s, right before she died. She came out and released her footnotes and the transcripts of supposedly this alien interview. I'll go ahead and share this interview with you tomorrow. It's a crazy interview. I'll probably do like a 4-part because it's 4 hours long to read, but I'll do a 4-part, and It's going to sound insane, but we have to understand everything that we've been told is an illusion. From interdimensional beings to spacecraft to the universe, half truths and lies. And we need to start breaking that fake reality. All right, guys, make sure you research Project High Jump. Look into the Nazi flying saucers. There's pictures, many pictures of them. I've over the years I've collected pictures of the supposed different types of flying saucers that the Germans had. Uh, look up these documents. You can find them in the CIA archives. You can probably find them in the FBI vault as well. But the CIA archives have all these documents of the interrogations and them keeping up on any information coming out of newspapers or newspaper interviews. If you want to support, make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit all notification for future live streams and videos. If you want to support monetarily, just go ahead and click on the links in the description. For all my haters, I'm going to keep on talking about all these things. There's nothing you can do about it. Keep on sending your energy. I'm more powerful than you, and I will continue day after day. Bye.